A scream shatters the night. A body lies cold in a glittering conservatory, and Hercule Poirot smells murder in the air. Let's unravel the next twist. Chapter 1. The Invitation to Blackwood Manor. Picture this. It's a crisp autumn afternoon in 1930s England, where the leaves are turning shades of amber and gold, and the world still clings to the elegance of a bygone era. Our story begins with the legendary Belgian detective Hercule Poirot sitting in his cozy London apartment, meticulously arranging his moustache in front of an ornate mirror. Poirot, with his egg-shaped head, piercing green eyes, and impeccable sense of order, is a man who believes that the little grey cells, the brain, are the ultimate weapon against chaos. He's just finished solving a minor case involving a stolen pearl necklace when a letter arrives, sealed with an elaborate wax crest. The envelope is thick, cream-coloured paper, the kind that whispers of old money and hidden secrets. Poirot slices it open with a silver letter opener, his movements precise, like a surgeon at work. The letter is from Lady Evelyn Blackwood, a wealthy widow known in high society for her lavish parties and her sprawling estate, Blackwood Manor, nestled in the rolling hills of Sussex. She writes in flowing script, "Dear Monsieur Poirot, I humbly request your presence at a weekend gathering at Blackwood Manor. There are matters of great delicacy that require your unique expertise. Discretion is paramount. Yours, Lady Evelyn." Poirot raises an eyebrow, intrigued of course, because who could resist such a mysterious summons? He packs his suitcase with starched shirts, a few bottles of his favourite tisane, and his ever-present notebook, then boards the train to Sussex, watching the countryside blur by as he ponders what matters of great delicacy might entail. Upon arrival, Blackwood Manor looms like a Gothic dream, its stone facade covered in ivy, towers piercing the sky and at the heart of the estate. The famed crystal Conservatory, magnificent glass house built in the Victorian style, filled with rare plants from around the world. It's a place where sunlight dances through prisms of glass, creating rainbows on the tiled floors, but also a structure that feels fragile, as if one wrong move could shatter it all. Lady Evelyn greets Poirot at the grand entrance, her silver hair piled high, dressed in a silk gown that rustles like whispers. She's in her 60s, sharp-eyed and commanding, but there's a flicker of anxiety in her gaze. "Monsieur Poirot, thank you for coming," she says, her voice steady but laced with urgency. "We have guests arriving, and I fear, well, let's discuss it over tea." As they settle in the drawing-room, with its roaring fireplace and walls lined with portraits of stern ancestors, Lady Evelyn explains the reason for the invitation. Her late husband, Sir Reginald Blackwood, was a collector of exotic artifacts, and among his treasures is the famed Emerald Serpent, a priceless jade statue rumoured to carry a curse from ancient Egypt. Recently, strange occurrences have plagued the manor. Whispers in the night, shadows moving in the conservatory, and anonymous letters threatening to expose family secrets. "I suspect someone among my guests wants the serpent for themselves," she confides, "or perhaps to ruin me." Poirot nods thoughtfully, twirling his moustache. "Madame, the human heart is a labyrinth, but Poirot shall navigate it." The guests begin to arrive, each one a potential suspect in this unfolding drama. First is Victor Harrington, Lady Evelyn's nephew, a dashing but detriment playboy in his 30s, with slicked back hair and a charming smile that doesn't quite reach his eyes. He's always short on cash, gambling away his allowance at Monte Carlo, and he eyes the manor with barely concealed greed. Next comes Dr. Amelia Thorne, a botanist who's been cataloguing the conservatory's plants, a stern woman in spectacles, her hands calloused from soil, harbouring a grudge against Sir Reginald for stealing rare specimens from her expeditions. Then there's Colonel Marcus Hale, a retired military man with a booming voice and a limp from the Great War, who's invested heavily in the Blackwood estate and stands to lose everything if it falters. His wife, the flirtatious Isabella Hale, arrives separately, her laughter tinkling like crystal, but her eyes dart nervously, hinting at affairs and hidden motives. Rounding out the party is Reginald's old business partner, Mr. Elias Crowe, a shrewd financier with a beak-like nose and a habit of clutching his pocket watch, as if time itself is slipping away. He's been arguing with Lady Evelyn over shares in the family company, and rumours swirled that he forged documents to claim the Emerald Serpent. Finally, there's the young maid, Sophie, who's been with the family for years, quiet, observant, with a French accent that reminds Poirot of home, but she overhears everything and might know more than she lets on. As the group gathers for cocktails in the conservatory, the air hums with tension. The glass walls reflect their faces like distorted mirrors, and exotic flowers bloom under artificial lights. Orchids with petals like velvet, ferns curling like question marks, and in the centre, a fountain bubbling softly. Poirot observes them. All his little grey cells worry. Victor flirts with Isabella. Dr. Thorne examines a rare lily with intense focus. Colonel Hale puffs on a cigar while arguing politics with Crowe, and Lady Evelyn plays the perfect hostess, though her hands tremble slightly as she pours drinks. The conversation turns to the Emerald Serpent, displayed on a pedestal in the conservatory, a coiled snake of deep green jade, eyes set with rubies that seem to glow. It's cursed, you know, Victor jokes, brings death to those who covet it. Laughter echoes, but it's forced, and Poirot senses the undercurrents of envy and fear. Dinner is served in the grand dining hall, with crystal chandeliers casting sparkles on silverware. The menu is exquisite. Consomme, roast pheasant, and creme brulee paired with fine wines. But midway through, a storm brews outside, thunder rumbling like distant artillery. Lightning flashes, illuminating the conservatory visible through the windows. Suddenly, a crash echoes from that direction glass, shattering, a cry cut short. The guests freeze, forks midway to mouths. What was that? Isabella gasps. Poirot is the first to rise, his napkin folded neatly. Mise Amos, we must investigate. They rush to the conservatory, rain now pelting the glass roof. There, amid shattered panes and scattered soil, lies Elias Crowe, face down in a pool of blood, the Emerald Serpent clutched in his rigid hand. His pocket watch has stopped at exactly 8:47. Glass shards glitter around him like deadly diamonds, and a single orchid petal rests on his back. Lady Evelyn screams, Victor turns pale, Dr. Thorne kneels to check for a pulse none. Colonel Hull barks orders to seal the doors, while Sophie hovers in the shadows. Wide-eyed Dot. Poirot kneels beside the body, his eyes scanning every detail. A faint scent of chloroform on Crowe's lips, a smudge of dirt on his shoes that doesn't match the conservatory's soil, and a torn cufflink, shaped like a serpent nearby. This is no accident, Poirot declares softly. It is murder, most foul. The storm rages on, trapping them all inside, and as the police are summoned but delayed by flooded roads, Poirot knows he must unravel the web before the killer strikes. Again, who? What a chilling start to our mystery secrets, bubbling up like that fountain. and Poirot's mind already piecing together clues. But hold on, because in the next chapter, we'll delve into the alibis and first interrogations, where lies start to crack like that crystal glass. Stay tuned. Chapter 2. The Alibis and Hidden Truths. The storm rages outside Blackwood Manor, rain hammering the crystal conservatory like 1,000 tiny fists, while inside the air is thick with shock and suspicion. Hercule Poirot stands over Elias Crow's lifeless body, his sharp eyes darting from the shattered glass to the jade serpent still clutched in the dead man's hand. The guests huddle near the fountain, their faces pale, some trembling, others calculating. Lady Evelyn wrings her hands, her composure fraying like an old tapestry. "Who could do such a thing?" she whispers. Poirot, ever calm, adjusts his bow tie and announces, "Mies, Amos, we are all suspects until proven otherwise. Let us begin with the alibis." His voice is soft but firm, cutting through the chaos like a knife through silk. This chapter dives into the first interrogations, where Poirot's little grey cells start to untangle the web of lies, and we'll see how each guest's story holds up under his piercing gaze. Poirot gathers everyone in the drawing room, where the fire crackles, casting long shadows on the walls. The portraits of Blackwood ancestors seem to watch, their painted eyes judging the living. He seats the guests in a semicircle, Victor Harrington slouching with a forced grin, Dr. Amelia Thorne clutching her notebook, Colonel Marcus Hale standing, rigid Isabella Hale fanning herself dramatically, Lady Evelyn perched on the edge of her chair, and Sophie, the maid, lingering near the door, her eyes downcast but alert. Poirot paces slowly, his polished shoes clicking on the hardwood floor, his hands clasped behind his back. "We must establish where each of you was at 8:47, when Monsieur Crow met his unfortunate end," he says. "Precision is key. Begin." "Please, Monsieur Harrington." Victor, the charming nephew, runs a hand through his slick hair and laughs nervously. "Me, I was in the billiard room, practicing my shots. All alone, I'm afraid. Needed a break from all the sparkling conversation." His smile is too wide, and Poirot notes the sweat beading on his forehead despite the chilly room. Next, Dr. Thorne speaks, her voice clipped. "I was in the library, reviewing my notes on the conservatory's orchids. I work better alone." She pushes her spectacles up her nose, but her fingers tremble slightly. Colonel Hale clears his throat, his military bearing intact. "I stepped outside for a cigar on the terrace just before the storm hit. Saw no one, heard nothing. Blast it, man, it was windy." His wife, Isabella, bats her lashes and claims she was in her guest room, freshening up after dinner, though her lipstick is suspiciously perfect. Lady Evelyn insists she was in the dining hall, instructing the staff to clear the plates, with Sophie nodding confirmation. "I was with Milady," Sophie murmurs, her French accent soft, her gaze fixed on the floor. Poirot's eyes linger on hers, too quiet, too observant for a mere maid. He scribbles in his notebook, not words, but a small sketch of the conservatory layout, marking where each guest claims to have been. "Very well," he says, "but alibis are like mirrors. Sometimes they reflect only what we wish to see." Poirot shifts focus to the crime scene, asking each guest what they noticed when they reached the conservatory. Victor mentions the shattered glass, like someone threw a bloody rock through it. Dr. Thorne points out the disturbed soil around a rare fern, as if someone stepped on it. Colonel Hale grumbles about the deuced mess of broken pots, while Isabella shudders, recalling the ghastly sight of Crow's body. Sophie, hesitantly, mentions a faint smell, like medicine, maybe, near the body. Poirot's moustache twitches chloroform, he thinks, confirming his earlier observation. Lady Evelyn, pale, admits she was too shocked to notice details, but swears the Emerald Serpent was on its pedestal before dinner, now. Poirot probes deeper, asking about relationships with Crow. Victor admits he owed Crow money from a failed business deal, his tone bitter. The old vulture never let me forget it. Dr. Thorne snaps that Crow pressured her to sell rare plant specimens to fund his schemes. Colonel Hale reveals Crow was pushing to sell Blackwood Manor's land for profit, which would ruin Hale's investments. Isabella giggles nervously, saying Crow was too serious, always whispering secrets. Lady Evelyn confesses Crow threatened to expose a family scandal tied to her husband's artifact dealings unless she handed over the serpent. Sophie says nothing, but Poirot catches her flinch when Crow's name is mentioned. The detectives' mind races. Motives are piling up like autumn leaves. Greed, revenge, fear. He decides to test the group, asking casually, did anyone hear the glass break before the scream? Silence falls, but Isabella's fan stops mid-wave, and Victor's grin falters. Poirot notes this, his eyes gleaming. He then asks about the cufflink found near Crow's serpent design, not Crow's style. No one claims it, but Colonel Hale's hand brushes his sleeve, where a cufflink is missing. Curious, Poirot murmurs, making a mental note to shake things up. Poirot suggests they recreate the moments before the crime. He sends each guest to where they claimed to be at 8:47, observing their movements. Victor heads to the billiard room, but Poirot notices he takes a detour past the conservatory door. Dr. Thorne strides to the library, but her boots leave a trace of conservatory soil. Colonel Hale stomps to the terrace, yet his limp seems less pronounced. Isabella flounces to her room, but her heels click too quickly, as if she's hiding urgency. Lady Evelyn and Sophie return to the dining hall, their story holding for now. Back in the drawing room, Poirot shares a small clue to gauge reactions. The killer left a marker smudge of dirt, not from the conservatory. Dr. Thorne's eyes narrow, Victor shifts uncomfortably, and Hale grips his cane tighter. Poirot doesn't reveal the chloroform scent yet, keeping that ace up his sleeve. He dismisses the group, saying, "Sleep well, but know this." Poirot sees all, even in the dark. As they disperse, he lingers, sketching the cufflink in his notebook, wondering whose sleeve it fell from. The storm hasn't let up, and neither has the tension in Blackwood Manor. Poirot's just getting started, peeling back layers of deception like petals from a flower. Next, we'll follow him as he digs into the Emerald Serpent's curse and uncovers secrets tied to the manor's past. Stay with us for the next twist. Chapter 3. The Curse of the Emerald Serpent. The storm continues its relentless assault on Blackwood Manor, with lightning casting jagged shadows through the crystal conservatory's remaining panes. Hercule Poirot sits alone in the manor's library, surrounded by leather-bound books and the faint musty scent of old paper. A single lamp casts a warm glow on his notebook, where he's drawn a detailed sketch of the Emerald Serpent, its ruby. Eyes staring back at him from the page. The jade statue, now locked in Lady Evelyn's safe, is more than a priceless artifact. It's the heart of this mystery, and Poirot suspects its so-called curse is a key to unlocking the killer's motive. In this chapter, we'll follow Poirot as he digs into the serpent's history, uncovers whispers of scandal, and finds clues hidden in the manor's dusty corners, all while the guests' nerves fray like old ropes. Poirot begins by examining the library's collection of Sir Reginald Blackwood's journals, which Lady Evelyn permitted him to access. The journals, bound in faded green leather, detail Sir Reginald's expeditions to Egypt in the early 1900s, where he acquired the Emerald Serpent from a tomb near Luxor. The entries are meticulous, written in tight script, describing the statue as a sacred relic of a forgotten pharaoh, said to bring fortune to its rightful owner but death to thieves. One passage catches Poirot's eye. The local guide warned of a curse. He who takes the serpent without honor shall face the serpent's bite. I laughed, but his eyes held fear. Poirot taps his pencil against the page, intrigued. A curse could be superstition, but it's also a perfect mask for murder. He cross-references the journal with a book on Egyptian artifacts, finding a reference to the serpent's origins in a temple dedicated to Wadjet, the serpent goddess. The text mentions a ritual involving a bitter herb used to cleanse those who touched the statue. Poirot's mind flashes to the chloroform scent on Crow's lips. Could it be a modern twist on an ancient poison? He makes a note to check the conservatory's plants for anything toxic. Perhaps something Dr. Thorne, the botanist, might know too well. Closing the book, he decides to explore the manor for physical clues tied to the serpent's history. Poirot moves to the conservatory, now cordoned off but accessible to him. The storm has calmed to a drizzle, and moonlight filters through the broken glass, illuminating the crime scene. He kneels by the fountain where Crow's body was found, and notices a faint scratch on the pedestal where the serpent stood. It's not random or deliberate mark, like a symbol, possibly a snake's coil. Using a pocket magnifying glass, he confirms it's recent, etched with a sharp tool. Nearby, in the soil of a shattered pot, he finds a tiny fragment of green wax, like that used for sealing letters. It doesn't match the conservatory's decor, suggesting someone carried it here. Poirot pockets the fragment, his mind turning to the wax-sealed letter that summoned him. Could the killer have left this clue intentionally? Next, Poirot visits the manor's trophy room, where Sir Reginald displayed relics from his travels. The room is a shrine to adventure, spears, masks, and a glass case holding a replica of the Emerald Serpent, less valuable but eerily similar. A faded photograph on the wall shows Sir Reginald and Elias Crow in Egypt, standing beside a camel, both smiling but with tension in their postures. Poirot recalls Lady Evelyn's mention of Crow's claim to the serpent. Was it greed or something deeper? He finds a locked drawer in a nearby desk, and with a hairpin from his pocket, a trick from his early days, opens it to reveal a bundle of letters. There, from Crow to Sir Reginald, dated years ago, demanding a share of the serpent's profits, hinting at a betrayal during their expedition. One letter reads, "You stole more than the statue, Reginald. You know what I mean." Poirot's moustache quivers. Blackmail, perhaps. To test his theory, Poirot seeks out Sophie, the maid, finding her polishing silver in the pantry. Her hands move quickly, but her eyes meet his with a quiet intelligence. "Mademoiselle Sophie," he says gently, "you hear much in this house. What do you know of Monsieur Crow and Sir Reginald?" She hesitates, then whispers, "They argued years ago in the study, something about Egypt and a woman. I was young, but I heard shouting." Poirot presses gently, learning the woman was a local guide's sister, possibly wronged by Sir Reginald. Sophie clams up after that, claiming, "She said too much." Poirot thanks her, noting her French accent, Again, could she have ties to his own past? Or is it coincidence? Returning to the library, Poirot pieces together the puzzle. The serpent's curse might be a motive for someone seeking revenge for past wrongs, perhaps tied to Sir Reginald's actions in Egypt. Crow's death, staged in the conservatory with the statue in hand, feels theatrical, meant to send a message. But who benefits? Victor, desperate for money. Dr. Thorne, with her knowledge of poisons. Colonel Hale, protecting his investments. Or someone else, hiding in plain sight. Poirot decides to confront the guests indirectly, planting a seed to flush. Out the killer. Breakfast, served in the morning room as rain taps the windows. Poirot casually mentions the curse to the group. The Emerald Serpent, it seems, brings death to those who steal it, he says, sipping his tisane. Perhaps Monsieur Crow was not the rightful owner. Victor chokes on his coffee. Dr. Thorne's fork pauses, and Colonel Hale's eyes narrow. Isabella laughs, too loudly, saying, "What nonsense!" But her hands twist her napkin. Lady Evelyn pales, murmuring about her husband's obsession with the statue. Poirot watches their reactions, filing them away like cards in a deck, before dismissing them. He asks about the green wax fragment, describing it vaguely as a curious find. No one admits to recognizing it, but Dr. Thorne's gaze flicks to her satchel, where Poirot spots a stick of green sealing wax peeking out. He says nothing, letting the tension simmer. As the guests leave, he lingers, sketching the wax fragment beside the serpent symbol in his notebook. The pieces are connecting, but the picture is still blurred. The morning grows quiet, but Poirot's mind is anything but. He's unearthed a scandal tied to the serpent, a possible poison in the conservatory, and a web of motives stretching from Egypt to Sit. The killer is close, watching, perhaps planning their next move. In the next chapter, we'll shadow Poirot as he tests the guests with a clever trap, using the manor's secrets to lure the murderer into the open. Keep watching, the truth is slithering closer. Chapter 4. The trap in the twilight. The drizzle has softened to a fine mist over Blackwood Manor, cloaking the estate in a silvery haze that makes the crystal conservatory shimmer like a mirage. Hercule Poirot stands in the manor's grand hall, his polished shoes reflecting the flickering light of a chandelier above. His notebook, now filled with sketches of the Emerald Serpent, a mysterious wax fragment, and a cryptic symbol, rests in his pocket. But his mind is far from idle. The murder of Elias Crow has stirred a nest of secrets, and Poirot knows the killer is among the guests. Their facade as fragile as the shattered glass in the conservatory. In this chapter, we'll follow Poirot as he sets a cunning trap to provoke a reaction, using the manor's eerie atmosphere and the guests' hidden fears to draw the murderer out. Every step is calculated, every word a baited hook, as the little grey cells work overtime to expose the truth. Poirot begins the day with a plan, one that relies on psychology as much as evidence. He believes the killer staged Crow's death to mimic the Emerald Serpent's curse, a theatrical touch meant to obscure their motive. To unsettle them, he decides to announce that he's close to solving the case, exaggerating his findings to provoke a slip. He gathers the guests in the morning room, where sunlight struggles through fogged windows, casting a pale glow on the oak-panelled walls. The breakfast table is laden with scones, jam, and steaming tea, but the mood is anything but warm. Victor Harrington slouches in his chair, picking at a pastry. Dr. Amelia Thorne sips tea with a scowl. Colonel Marcus Hale polishes his monocle, his jaw tight. Isabella Hale twirls a curl round her finger, her smile brittle. Lady Evelyn sits stiffly, her eyes darting to the door, and Sophie, the maid, pours coffee with a quiet grace, her face unreadable. Mise Amos, Poirot begins, standing at the head of the table. His voice smooth as velvet. The murder of Monsieur Crowe is no mystery to Hercule Poirot. The cluster, wax, the symbol, the poison they point to one among us. He pauses, letting the words sink in, his green eyes scanning each face. Victor's fork clatters. Dr. Thorne adjusts her spectacles. Colonel Hale grips his cane. Isabella gasps softly. Lady Evelyn's teacup rattles. Sophie's hand trembles, spilling a drop of coffee. Poirot continues, "Tonight I shall reveal the killer's identity in the conservatory, where the truth will shine like the crystal itself. He's lying, he's not ready to name the culprit, but the trap is set. A guilty conscience, he knows, cannot resist meddling. With the guests dismissed, Poirot retreats to the conservatory to prepare his stage. The crime scene is still a mess. Of broken glass and overturned pots, the fountain now silent, its water stagnant. He examines the pedestal where the Emerald Serpent stood, noting the scratch marker coiled snake-etched deeper than he first thought. Using his magnifying glass, he discovers a trace of green paint in the grooves, not wax, suggesting a tool like a letter opener or knife was used. This strengthens his theory that the murder was planned, the symbol a deliberate clue to evoke the curse. He also inspects the plants, focusing on Dr. Thorne's domain. Among the orchids and ferns, he finds a small cluster of oleander, its pink flowers deceptively pretty. Oleander, he recalls, is toxic, and its leaves could be distilled into a poison mimicking chloroform's effects. He pockets a leaf, planning to confront Dr. Thorne later next. Poirot visits the manor's attic, a dusty maze of trunks and cobwebs, hoping to find more of Sir Reginald's artifacts. The air is thick, smelling of mildew and thyme among crates. Of pottery and faded maps, he uncovers a locked box with the same serpent symbol carved on its lid. Using his hairpin trick, he opens it to find a journal page torn from Sir Reginald's collection, dated 1912. It describes a heated argument with Crowe in Egypt, where Crowe accused Sir Reginald of seducing a local woman, the sister of their guide, and leaving her disgraced. The page ends abruptly. Crowe threatens to ruin me. The serpent is my shield. Poirot's moustache twitches. This scandal could be the root of Crowe's blackmail, and someone in the manor might kill too. Keep it buried. To test Dr. Thorne's knowledge, Poirot finds her in the library, hunched over a botanical text. "Madame," he says, holding up the oleander leaf, "this plant, it is dangerous, Nan." Thorne's eyes widen briefly before she shrugs. Oleander, toxic, yes, but common in conservatories. Anyone could access it. Her tone is defensive, and Poirot notes her satchel, where the green wax or paint still peeks out. He doesn't press further, instead planting another seed. The killer used poison, I think, to silence Monsieur Crowe. Very clever, very botanical. Thorne stiffens, but says nothing, her fingers clutching her pen. Later, Poirot speaks with Colonel Hale on the terrace, where the mist clings to the stone balustrade. He mentions the cufflink found near Crowe, describing its serpent design. Hale's hand brushes his sleeve, where the missing cufflink's twin glints. "Lost one in the storm," he mutters. "Must have dropped it somewhere." Poirot nods, feigning belief, but notes Hale's limp is inconsistent, stronger today than yesterday. Could he have been in the conservatory, not the terrace, at the time of the murder? Poirot files this away, his trap tightening as evening falls. Poirot orchestrates his reveal in the conservatory, now lit by candles that flicker like fireflies against the glass. He asks Lady Evelyn to bring the Emerald Serpent from the safe, placing it on the pedestal under a cloth. The guests gather, their faces tense in the candlelight. Poirot begins. The curse of the serpent is not magic, but human greed and vengeance. Monsieur Crowe was killed to silence a secret from Egypt, one tied to this statue. He pulls the cloth away, revealing not the serpent, but a stone replica from the trophy room. Gasps ripple through the group. Victor curses under his breath. Dr. Thorne's hand flies to her satchel. Hale steps back. Isabella clutches her husband's arm. Lady Evelyn sways. Sophie drops a tray, the clatter echoing. Poirot watches closely. The real serpent is safe, he says, but the killer thought to steal it tonight, believing I would expose them. He's bluffing, but the effect is immediate. Dr. Thorne bolts for the door, claiming she feels ill, but Poirot stops her with a raised hand. Madame, your satchel may, I see it. Reluctantly, she hands it over, and Poirot finds a vial of green liquid paint, not wax, matching the pedestal's mark. This, he says, was used to carve the serpent symbol, Nan. Thorne stammers, insisting it's for labeling plants. But her panic betrays her. Before Poirot can press further, a scream comes from the hall. Sophie rushes in, pointing to the staircase, where a figure lies crumpled. Isabella Hale, her neck bruised. Unconscious but alive. The guests freeze, and Poirot realizes his trap has worked to wealth. The killer, cornered, has struck again. He kneels beside Isabella, detecting a faint whiff of chloroform on her shawl. Mon Dieu, he murmurs. The serpent strikes swiftly. The night is far from over, and Poirot's trap has stirred the killer into action, but at a cost. Isabella's attack adds a new layer to the mystery, and the clues Olander paint a scandal, point to a web of betrayal. In the next chapter, we'll follow Poirot as he races to save Isabella and unmask the culprit before the storm clears and the killer escapes. The truth is closer, but danger looms larger. Stay tuned for the next twist. Chapter 5. Shadows of Survival. The mist clings to Blackwood Manor like a shroud, the air heavy with the scent of damp earth and fading candlelight. In the grand hall, Hercule Poirot kneels beside Isabella Hale, her unconscious form sprawled at the foot of the staircase, her neck marked with faint bruises that tell a tale of violence narrowly escaped. The flickering glow of a nearby candelabrum casts eerie shadows, making the portraits on the walls seem to lean closer, as if whispering secrets of their own. The other guests hover nearby, their faces a mix of shock and suspicion, while the storm outside grumbles like a restless beast. Poirot's trap in the conservatory has flushed out the killer's desperation, but Isabella's attack means the murderer is growing bolder, striking under their very noses. In this chapter, we'll shadow Poirot as he races to revive Isabella, uncovers new evidence in the chaos, and tightens the noose around the killer's neck, all while navigating the tangled motives of Blackwood Manor's inhabitants. The little grey cells are in overdrive, and every moment counts. Poirot's first move is to ensure Isabella's safety. He checks her pulse steady, but weak-hand notes the chloroform scent on her shawl, confirming the same chemical used on Elias Crowe. Quickly, Sophie, he calls to the maid, who stands frozen, her eyes wide. Fetch cold water and a cloth. Sophie hurries off, her footsteps echoing in the cavernous hall. Poirot gently lifts Isabella's head, propping it on a cushion from a nearby chair, and examines the bruises, shallow, not deep, suggesting the attacker meant to incapacitate, not kill. A warning, perhaps, he murmurs, or an interruption. Colonel Hale, his face red with fury, demands, "Who did this to my wife?" But Poirot raises a hand for silence, his focus razor dash sharp dot, as Sophie returns with a basin and cloth. Poirot dabs Isabella's forehead, coaxing her back to consciousness. Her eyes flutter open, dazed, and she gasps, "A shadow grabbed me, near the stairs." Her voice is frail, and she clutches Poirot's sleeve, trembling. He presses gently, "Madame, did you see their face? A detail, anything?" Isabella shakes her head, tears welling. "It was dark, a man, I think, strong hands." Poirot nods, noting her uncertainty fear clouds memory. But her words point to a physical assailant, possibly ruling out the frailer suspects. He helps Colonel Hale carry Isabella to a nearby settee, where Lady Evelyn drapes a blanket over her, her own hands shaking. "This house is cursed," Lady Evelyn whispers, but Poirot's eyes narrow. He suspects human hands, not curses, art. At work, with Isabella stable, Poirot turns to the scene of the attack. The staircase, wide and carpeted in crimson, sweeps up to the manor's upper floors, flanked by a carved banister. At the base, he finds a single pearl earring, its clasp bent, likely torn from Isabella's ear during the struggle. It's delicate, set with a tiny emerald, distinctive enough to belong to her, but he pockets it for later verification. Nearby, on the polished floor, he spots a faint scuff mark, not from a shoe, but something softer, like fabric dragged across wood. His magnifying glass reveals a thread caught in a splintered green silk, fine and expensive, unlike the staff's uniforms. "Curio," he mutters, recalling Isabella's silk gown from dinner. But this shade is darker, closer to the emerald hue of the serpent. Could it belong to the attacker? Poirot's next step is to retrace Isabella's movements. She claimed to have been in her guest room before the conservatory gathering, but her quick return to the hall suggests she never went far. He ascends the staircase, his steps deliberate, and enters the guest wing. Isabella's room is a vision of opulence, silk drapes, a four-poster bed, and a vanity strewn with perfumes and jewelry. On the floor, near the door, he finds a crumpled note, written in a hurried scrawl, "Meet me by the stairs, 9:30. Urgent." It's unsigned, but the ink is fresh, and the paper smells faintly of cigar smoke, Colonel Hale's vice, perhaps, or someone mimicking it. Poirot tucks the note into his notebook, suspecting it lured Isabella to her attacker. To test his theory, Poirot seeks out Colonel Hale, finding him in the smoking room, pacing with a glass of brandy. "Monsieur Poirot," says, holding up the thread, "this silk, it is not your wife's, I think. Do you recognize it?" Hale squints, his monocle glinting, and shakes his head. "Never seen it. Isabella's been a wreck since Crow's death, says she heard noises in the night." Poirot probes further, asking about the cigar scent. Hale admits to smoking earlier, but insists he was in the smoking room at 9:30, not near the stairs. His limp, Poirot notes, is pronounced again, as if exaggerated under scrutiny. "Merci," Poirot says, dismissing him, but he's not convinced. Hale's alibi is shaky, and the cigar scent is too convenient. Next, Poirot corners Victor Harrington. In the billiard room, where he's idly rolling a cue ball across the table. "Monsieur Victor," Poirot begins, You were quick to leave the conservatory tonight. Where did you go? Victor grins, but his eyes are wary. Just needed air, old chap. Went to the veranda. Poirot raises an eyebrow. Veranda is on the opposite side of the manor from the stairs. He shows Victor the pearl earring, watching for a reaction. Pretty bauble, Victor says, shrugging, but not my style. His nonchalance feels forced, and Poirot notes a green silk tie peeking from his pocket. Its shade suspiciously close to the thread. Dr. Amelia Thorne is next. Found in the conservatory, repotting a fern with meticulous care. Poirot shows her the oleander leaf from earlier, asking, could this have been used to harm Madame Hale? Thorne's face hardens. Oleander's potent, but chloroform's faster. Whoever attacked her knew what they were doing. Her knowledge is too precise, and Poirot recalls the green paint in her satchel. He presses, and this paint, Madame, used to mark the serpent's pedestroyers, perhaps. Thorne flushes, insisting it's for labeling specimens, but her hands shake as she reposes the plant. Poirot lets her go, sensing she's hiding more than botany. Lady Evelyn, in her private study, is pale but composed when Poirot shows her the note. I wrote no such thing, she says, examining the handwriting. But it looks like Reginald's script. Her voice cracks, and she admits Sir Reginald used similar paper for his letters. Poirot wonders if the killer is using the manners past to sow confusion. Sophie, hovering nearby, overhears and adds, I saw a man near the stairs earlier. Monsieur, but it was too dark to see his face. Her voice is steady, but her eyes avoid Poirot's, as if guarding her own secret. As night deepens, Poirot returns to the hall, reconstructing the attack. The note leered Isabella, the chloroform subdued her, and the silk thread points to someone wealthy. Victor, perhaps, or even Lady Evelyn, whose wardrobe includes fine silks. The cigar scent suggests Hale, but the earring and bruises hint at a struggle interrupted, possibly by Sophie's scream. Poirot sketches the staircase in his notebook, marking the scuff and thread's locations, and adds a question, who benefits from silencing Isabella? She saw something, he suspects, perhaps tied to Crow's murder, to shake the killer further. Poirot gathers the guests in the drawing room, announcing Madame Hale was attacked to keep her silent. But she will recover, and her memory may yet name the culprit. It's a half-truth. Isabella's memory is foggy, but he watches for reactions. Victor fidgets, Dr. Thorne's jaw tightens, Hale glares, and Lady Evelyn twists her rings. Sophie, serving tea, drops a spoon, her face pale. Poirot ends the meeting, saying, the truth hides in the shadows, but Poirot's light will find it. The manor feels like a pressure cooker, the killer's desperation rising with each of Poirot's moves. Isabella's attack has narrowed. The suspects, but the green silk, the note, and the chloroform weave a complex puzzle. In the next chapter, we'll follow Poirot as he digs into Isabella's past and sets a final trap to catch the murderer before they strike again. The storm may be fading, but the danger is far from over. Stay with us, the net is closing. Chapter 6. Echoes of Isabella's past. The mist has settled into a ghostly veil around Blackwood Manor, wrapping the estate in a silence broken only by the occasional creak of ancient timbers. Hercule Poirot stands in the dimly lit corridor outside Isabella Hale's guest room, where she now rests under Sophie's watchful care. Her breathing steady, but her memory still clouded by the chloroform attack. The pearl earring, green silk thread, and cryptic note found at the staircase weigh heavily in Poirot's pocket. each a piece of the puzzle that connects Elias Crow's murder to the assault on Isabella. The killer is growing reckless, and Poirot senses they're circling closer, like a serpent poised to strike. In this chapter, we'll follow Poirot as he delves into Isabella's past, uncovering her ties to the manor's secrets and setting a final, daring trap to unmask the murderer. The little grey cells are alight, weaving clues into a tapestry of truth. But time is running short as the storm's end looms, promising the killer a chance to flee. Poirot begins by revisiting Isabella, now propped up on pillows in her room, her face pale but her eyes clearer. "Madame," he says softly, sitting beside her, "you saw something, perhaps, before the attack. A face, a gesture, anything." Isabella's fingers twist the blanket, her voice shaky. I was going to meet someone. The note said it. Was about Elias, something he told me. She hesitates, then whispers, he said he knew a secret about Reginald's death. Poirot's moustache quivers. Sir Reginald's death, officially a heart attack, now seems less certain. He presses gently, but Isabella's memory frays, clouded by fear and the drug. A man's voice, low, near the stairs. She adds, "Then the cloth over my face." Poirot nods, noting her mention of a man, which aligns with her earlier account but conflicts with the silk thread's feminine hint. Leaving Isabella to rest, Poirot seeks out Lady Evelyn in her study, where she's sorting through old letters. Her silver hair loosened from its usual bun. He shows her the pearl earring, asking, "This belongs to Madame Hale, oui." Lady Evelyn confirms it, recognizing the emerald setting as a gift from Colonel Hale. But when Poirot mentions Isabella's claim about Sir Reginald's death, Lady Evelyn's face hardens. "Nonsense," she snaps. "My husband died of natural causes." Elias was always stirring trouble, filling her head with lies. Her defensiveness intrigues Poirot. Could Isabella's knowledge threaten the Blackwood legacy? He asks about Isabella's history with the family, learning she was a close friend of Sir Reginald's sister, often visiting the manor before her marriage to Hale. She was always curious, Lady Evelyn says, her tone clipped, prying into things best left alone. Poirot's next stop is the manor's archives, a cramped room off the library stuffed with ledgers and correspondence. He sifts through guest books from the early 1920s, finding Isabella's name frequently listed alongside Sir Reginald's sister, Clara, who died in a riding accident a decade ago. A faded letter from Clara to Isabella catches his eye, tucked in a dusty folder. Elias knows what Reginald did in Egypt. "Be careful, he's dangerous." The letter is vague, but it ties Isabella to Crow's blackmail scheme, suggesting she knew of the Egyptian scandal involving Sir Reginald and the Emerald Serpent. Poirot sketches the letter's key phrases in his notebook, adding a question mark beside Clara's name. Her death, like Reginald's, now feels suspicious. To explore the silk thread's origin, Poirot visits the manor's sewing room, where spare fabrics are stored. Among bolts of cotton and wool, he finds a swatch of green silk, identical to the thread from the staircase, used for a dress commissioned by Lady Evelyn last year. But Sophie, who joins him to deliver linens, mentions seeing Dr. Thorne borrow the same fabric for a botanical display in the conservatory. She said it was for wrapping plant roots, Sophie says, her French accent soft but her eyes sharp. Poirot thanks her, noting her keen observation to keen, perhaps, for a maid. Is she an ally or another player in this deadly game? Poirot then confronts Dr. Thorne in the conservatory, where she's tending to a wilted orchid, her hands steady despite the tension in her shoulders. He holds up the green silk thread, saying, "This, Madame, was found where Madame Hale was." Attacked. "You used such fabric, Nan." Thorn's eyes flicker, but she replies coolly, "I used it for plants, as Sophie said. Anyone could have taken it." Poirot shifts tactics, mentioning the oleander's toxicity and the chloroform scent. "A botanist might craft such a poison," he muses, watching her closely. Thorn's jaw tightens, and she snaps, "I'm a scientist, not a murderer." But her satchel, still holding the green paint vial, betrays her nerves. She clutches it like a lifeline. Next, Poirot tests Victor Harrington, finding him in the lounge, nursing a whiskey. "Monsieur Poirot says, showing the note with cigar-scented paper, this lured Madame Hale to danger. You smoke, we psst." Victor laughs, too loud. "Half the men here do, Poirot. Not my paper." But his green silk tie, now tucked deeper in his pocket, catches Poirot's eye. When asked about Isabella, Victor admits she flirted with him. But nothing serious. She's always fishing for secrets. His casual tone feels rehearsed, and Poirot wonders if Victor silenced Isabella to protect his own schemes, perhaps tied to Crow's debts. Colonel Hale is in the trophy room, polishing a hunting rifle, when Poirot approaches. "Your wife knew something about Sir Reginald," Poirot says, watching Hale's reaction. The colonel's monocle slips, and he growls, "Isabella's fanciful. Crow fed her lies to extort Evelyn." But when Poirot mentions the cigar scent, Hale falters, admitting he smoked near the stairs earlier but saw nothing. His missing cufflink, Poirot notes, still points to his presence at Crow's murder, and his protective rage over Isabella feels oddly possessive. To set his final trap, Poirot gathers the guests in the dining hall at dusk, the long tables set with untouched wine glasses, the chandelier casting prisms on the walls. "Mies, Amos," he announces, "Madame Hale's attack was no accident. She knew a secret about Sir Reginald's death, one the killer wishes buried. Tonight, I place a clue in the Conservatory, a letter revealing all. He's bluffing. The letter is a blank sheet, sealed with green wax, hidden in the fountain's base. He hopes the killer will retrieve it, exposing themselves. Remain in your rooms," he adds, "for safety." The guests exchange uneasy glances. Victor's smirk fades. Dr. Thorne grips her satchel. Hale's cane taps nervously. Lady Evelyn twists her rings, and Sophie's eyes dart to the door. Poirot stations himself in the conservatory shadows, hidden behind a fern, his watch ticking past midnight. Footsteps approach, soft but deliberate. A figure in a dark coat creeps to the fountain, their gloved hand reaching for the letter. Lightning flashes, revealing their face but before Poirot. Connect, a crash echoes from the hall, and the figure bolts. Poirot gives chase, but they vanish into the manor's maze of corridors. Returning to the conservatory, he finds the letter gone, but a new clue lies in its place. A tiny vial of chloroform, its cap loose, as if dropped in haste. The trap has worked, but the killer is slippery, and the vial confirms their method. Isabella's past has unearthed a motive tied to Sir Reginald's secrets, and the green silk points to a wealthy conspirator. In the next chapter, we'll follow Poirot as he chases the figure's trail, using the chloroform vial and Isabella's fragmented memory to corner the murderer before they strike again. The truth is within reach, but the serpent's bite is ever near. Stay tuned for the climax. Chapter 7. The Chase Through the Shadows. The night envelops Blackwood Manor in a cloak of darkness. The mist now a faint whisper against the windows, as if the storm itself is holding its breath. Hercule Poirot stands in the crystal conservatory, his heart pounding from the chase that ended in a fleeting glimpse of a dark-coated figure vanishing into the manor's labyrinthine corridors. The chloroform vial, dropped by the fountain where his decoy letter was placed, glints in his hand under the moonlight filtering through the glass roof. Its cap, loose and hastily discarded, tells Poirot the killer was rattled by his trap, but their escape means they're still a step ahead. The air is thick with the scent of damp soil and exotic blooms, but also with the weight of secrets tied to Elias Crow's murder, Isabella Hale's attack, and the cursed Emerald Serpent. In this chapter, we'll follow Poirot as he pursues the figure's trail, deciphers the chloroform vial's significance, and uses Isabella's recovering memory to tighten the net around the murderer. The little grey cells are ablaze, and the truth is slithering closer, but danger lurks in every shadow. Poirot begins by examining the chloroform vial, its glass cool against his fingers. Under his magnifying glass, he spots a faint smudge of fingerprint, partial but distinct, on the rim. It's a small victory, but fingerprints are useless without a match, and the manor lacks the tools for such analysis. Instead, he focuses on the vial's label, scratched and faded, but bearing a trace of a chemical supplier's mark from London. This suggests premeditation. The killer brought the chloroform, not scavenged it from the conservatory's plants, casting doubt on Dr. Amelia Thorne's involvement. Despite her botanical expertise, Poirot pockets the vial, noting its size small enough to hide in a pocket or satchel, like the one Dr. Thorne carries, or the green silk tie Victor Harrington wears. He retraces the figure's path from the conservatory, following the corridor. Where they fled, the manor's halls are a maze of oak panels and flickering sconces, their light casting distorted shadows that seem to move on their own. Poirot's polished shoes click softly as he scans the floor for clues. Near a corner, he finds a scuff mark on the baseboard, not from a shoe but from fabric brushing against wood. Kneeling, he discovers another thread-green silk, identical to the one from Isabella's attack. It's caught in a splinter, suggesting the figure brushed past in haste. The same silk, the same killer, Poirot murmurs, adding the thread to his collection. The dark coat he saw could belong to anyone, but the silk points to Wealth Victor, Lady Evelyn, or perhaps an unexpected player to narrow the suspect list. Poirot seeks Isabella again, now sitting up in her room, sipping tea under Sophie's care. Her bruises are fading, but her eyes are haunted. Madame Poirot says gently, "Your memory is the key. You mentioned Elias, spoke of Sir Reginald's death. What exactly did he say?" Isabella's hands tremble. "Spilling tea," he said. "Reginald was poisoned, not a heart attack. Something from Egypt, a bitter herb. Elias wanted money to keep quiet." Her words echo the journal entry about the serpent's ritual herb, and Poirot's mind, Rasescud, Crow's blackmail, have provoked his murder. He shows Isabella the green silk thread, asking if she recalls it from her attacker. She shakes her head, but her gaze lingers, as if the colour stirs a memory she can't grasp. Poirot next visits the manor's kitchen, where Sophie is preparing broth for Isabella. The maid's movements are precise, but her eyes dart to Poirot, wary. "Mademoiselle," he says, holding up the chloroform vial, "this was found tonight. Have you seen such a thing in the manor?" Sophie's face pales, but she shakes her head. "No, monsieur. The staff uses no such chemicals." Her French accent is flawless, yet Poirot senses she's holding back. He probes further, asking about the dark-coated figure. "I saw someone in the hall earlier," she admits, near the back stairs, but it was too dark to see more. Her hesitation suggests fear or complicity. Poirot thanks her, noting her as a wild card in this deadly game. To trace the figure's escape route, Poirot explores the back stairs, a narrow spiral used by servants. The steps are worn, the air musty, and at the top he finds a dropped handkerchief monogrammed with a V. Victor's initial, but also vague enough to be a plant. The handkerchief smells faintly of cigar smoke, linking it to Colonel Hale's alibi or someone framing him. Poirot tucks it away, his mind turning to the manor's layout. The back stairs lead to the guest wing, where Victor, Hale, and Dr. Thorne's rooms are located, but also to a side exit near the conservant vestige further. A shadow, perhaps, wearing a dark coat and green silk tie, moving swiftly to avoid detection. Poirot's trap has stirred the hornet's nest, and the killer's desperation is his greatest weapon. In the next chapter, we'll see him confront the suspects head-on, using the vial, the handkerchief, and Isabella's testimony to force the murderer into the open. The serpent's coils are tightening. Don't miss the next twist. Chapter 8. The confrontation in the Crimson Room. The dawn breaks over Blackwood Manor, painting the sky in streaks of pale gold, but the air inside remains heavy with suspicion and fear. Hercule Poirot stands in the grand hall, the chloroform, vile green silk thread, and monogrammed handkerchief tucked safely in his pocket, each a silent witness to the killer's growing desperation. The dark-coated figure's escape last night has left Poirot with a clearer trail, but the murderer is cunning, weaving a web of misdirection with every step. Isabella Hale's fragmented memory of Elias Crow's blackmail and the hints of Sir Reginald's poisoned death point to a motive rooted in the manor's past, while the green silk and cigar-scented handkerchief narrow the suspects to a dangerous few. In this chapter, we'll follow Poirot as he stages a dramatic confrontation in the manor's crimson-walled dining hall, using the clues to provoke the killer into a fatal mistake. The little grey cells are poised for battle, and the truth is tantalizingly close. But one wrong move could let the serpent slip away. Poirot begins the morning with a meticulous plan. Knowing the killer's boldness, attacking Isabella and stealing the decoy letter means they're feeling cornered. He decides to gather the guests for a confrontation, not to name the culprit outright, but to present the evidence in a way that forces a reaction. He instructs Sophie to summon everyone to the dining hall at noon, where the long mahogany table, polished to a mirror-like sheen, reflects the crimson walls and glittering chandelier above. The room feels like a stage, perfect for Poirot's performance. He arranges the clues on the table, the chloroform vial, the green silk thread, the handkerchief with the V monogram, and a sketch of the serpent symbol from the conservatory pedestal. Each item is a prop in his psychological trap. As the guests assemble, their faces betray their nerves. Victor Harrington lounges in his chair, but his fingers drum restlessly. Dr. Amelia Thorne sits rigidly, her spectacles glinting as she avoids the table. Colonel Marcus Hale grips his cane, his monocle catching the light, while Isabella, now recovered but pale, clings to his arm. Lady Evelyn, regal in a black dress, twists a lace handkerchief, her eyes darting to the clues. Sophie hovers near the door, serving coffee with a steady hand but a guarded expression. Poirot stands at the head of the table, his bow tie impeccable, his voice calm but commanding. "Mies Amos," he begins, "the killer of Elias Crow and the attacker of Madame Hale is among us. These clues will unmask them, for Hercule Poirot sees through lies as clearly as through this crystal. He gestures to a wine glass, its facets sparkling. He starts with the chloroform vial, holding it aloft. This was dropped last night by a figure in a dark coat, fleeing the conservatory. It matches the scent used on Monsieur Crowe and Madame. Hail a planned weapon, not a spur-of-the-moment choice. He watches Dr. Thorne, whose botanical knowledge makes her a suspect. But her face remains impassive, though her hand tightens on her coffee cup. Next, he lifts the green silk thread. This, found at Madame Hale's attack, matches fabric used by Madame Evelyn and borrowed by Madame Thorne. It speaks of wealth, of someone with access to fine things. Lady Evelyn gasps softly, while Dr. Thorne's jaw clenches. Poirot then reveals the handkerchief, its V bold in the candlelight. This, dropped on the back stairs, smells of cigar smoke. Monsieur Victor, Monsieur Hale both smoke. Nan. Victor smirks, but his eyes flicker, while Hal snaps. Half the men in England smoke. Poirot. Poirot paces, his voice rising. The killer staged Monsieur Crowe's death to mimic the Emerald Serpent's curse, carving a symbol to sow fear. But why? To hide a motive blackmail, perhaps, over a secret from Egypt. He turns to Isabella, who shrinks under his gaze. Madame Hale, you said Monsieur Crowe spoke of Sir Reginald's poisoning. Who else knew this? Isabella stammers. I told no one, but Elias said he'd told someone else, someone close. Her words hang heavy, and Poirot notes Victor's sudden stillness and Lady Evelyn's sharp intake of breath to escalate the pressure. Poirot reveals a half-truth. Last night, the killer took a letter I placed in the conservatory, believing it held the truth about Sir Reginald. But it was blank a trap. The real truth lies in these clues. He's bluffing about the letter's contents, but the effect is immediate. Victor's smirk fades. Dr. Thorne adjusts her spectacles nervously, and Hale's cane taps faster. Lady Evelyn's handkerchief tears slightly, and Sophie, pouring coffee, spills a drop, her eyes darting to Poirot. He continues. The killer used chloroform, silk, and a staged curse to silence Crowe and warn Madame Hale. But they left traces, and Poirot never forgets a trace. He shifts focus to the serpent symbol, showing his sketch. This was carved with green paint, found in Madame Thorne's satchel. Thorne protests. It's for plants, I told you. But her voice cracks. Poirot presses on, and the cigar-scented handkerchief, perhaps a frame, perhaps not. Monsieur Victor, your initial HAI, oui. Victor flushes, but his voice is steady. Don't look at me, Poirot. I lost that handkerchief weeks ago. Poirot nods, feigning belief, but his eyes linger on the green silk tie in Victor's pocket. Matching the thread to push further, Poirot turns to Colonel Hale. Monsieur, your cufflink was found near Crowe's body, and your cigar smoke near the stairs. Yet you claim the terrace. Hale's face reddens. I told you, I lost it. Someone's framing me. Isabella clutches his arm, whispering, Marcus, tell him. But Hale silences her. Poirot notes the tension Hale's anger feels. Genuine, but his inconsistencies pile up. Finally, Poirot addresses Lady Evelyn. Madame, the secret of your husband's death did. It drives someone to kill. Her eyes widen, but she says, Reginald died naturally. This is madness. Yet, her trembling hands betray her. Sophie, clearing plates, drops a saucer, and Poirot catches her glance at Victor too quick to knowing. He decides to test her later, suspecting her role is more than it seems. Poirot concludes, the killer is here, watching. Tonight, I will. Lock the Emerald Serpent in the safe, but I will watch. Make no move, or Poirot will know. He dismisses them, planting the seed of fear. As they disperse, he lingers, sketching their reactions in his notebook. Victor's forced calm, Thorne's defensiveness, Hale's rage, Isabella's fear, Evelyn's fragility, Sophie's secrecy. After lunch, Poirot follows Sophie to the pantry, showing her the handkerchief. Mademoiselle, you saw the figure on the stairs. Was this theirs? Sophie hesitates, then nods. I think so. It was dark. Her accent slips slightly, and Poirot wonders French or a performance. He thanks her, his suspicions deepening. In the conservatory, Poirot examines the fountain, finding a tiny scratch on the rim, matching the serpent symbol's tool. Nearby, a crushed oleander leaf suggests Dr. Thorne's presence, but the chloroform vial points elsewhere. He visits Victor's room, finding a cigar box but no green paint. In Hale's room, a dark coat hangs, but no silk tie. Dr. Thorne's satchel yields more green paint, but no chloroform. Lady Evelyn's wardrobe has green silk, but no monogrammed items as dusk falls. Poirot sets a new trap. He announces the safe's combination has changed, but he leaves it unchanged, watching. From a hidden alcove, footsteps approach, and a figure. Victor tries the safe, failing. Poirot steps out, but Victor claims he was checking its security. Poirot lets him go, knowing the killer will try again. The confrontation has cracked their facades, and the clues vial, thread, handkerchief, symbol point to a complex plot. In the next chapter, we'll see Poirot spring his final trap, using the safe and Isabella's memory to unmask the killer as the storm clears. The serpent's fangs up. Birds, stay tuned for the reveal. Chapter 9. The serpent's final strike. The twilight over Blackwood Manor casts long shadows through the crystal conservatory, where the remaining glass panes gleam like the edges of a blade. Hercule Poirot stands in the manor's study, the air thick with the scent of old leather and wax polish. His notebook open to a page crowded with sketches. The serpent symbol, the chloroform vial, the green silk thread, and the monogrammed handkerchief. Victor Harrington's failed attempt to open the safe last night has tightened the noose, but Poirot knows the killer is still at large, their desperation mounting as the storm clears, offering a chance to flee. Isabella Hale's memory of Elias, Crow's blackmail about Sir Reginald's poisoning, combined with the clues pointing to wealth and deception, suggests a motive rooted in betrayal and greed. In this chapter, we'll follow Poirot as he springs his final trap, using the Emerald Serpent as bait to lure the murderer into the open, while unraveling the last threads of the manor's dark secrets. The little grey cells are at their peak, and the truth is within grasp. But the killer's next move could be deadly. Poirot begins by securing the Emerald Serpent, which Lady Evelyn returned to the study's safe after the confrontation. He announces to the staff that the safe's combination remains unchanged, a deliberate lie to tempt the killer. In reality, he's rigged a subtle alarm-thin thread tied to the safe's handle, connected to a bell hidden in a nearby vase. If disturbed, the bell will chime, alerting him from his vantage point in the study's alcove, concealed behind heavy drapes. He also places a decoy statue, a stone replica from the trophy room, on the conservatory pedestal, hoping to draw the killer back to the crime scene. The serpent calls to the guilty, he murmurs, adjusting his bow tie, his eyes gleaming with anticipation. To deepen his understanding, Poirot revisits Isabella in her room, where she's sipping broth, her bruises now faint shadows. "Madame," he says, sitting beside her, "your words about Monsieur Crow's blackmail are vital. Did he name anyone else who knew of Sir Reginald's poisoning?" Isabella's eyes flicker with fear, but she nods. "He mentioned a woman, someone who worked here long ago. He said she vanished after Reginald's death." Her voice trembles, and Poirot's mind races. Could this be Sophie's mother, or another figure tied to the Egyptian scandal? He shows her the monogrammed handkerchief, asking if it sparks a memory. "It's familiar," she whispers, "like one Clara had. Victor's aunt." Poirot's moustache twitches. Clara, Sir Reginald's sister, links back to Isabella's past visits and the letter warning of Crow's danger. Poirot seeks Sophie next, finding her in the kitchen, kneading dough with practiced hands. Her French accent is flawless, but her guarded eyes betray her. "Mademoiselle," he says, holding up the handkerchief, "this bears a V. You mentioned seeing a figure on the stairs. Could this be theirs?" Sophie's hands pause, flour dusting her apron. I don't know, monsieur. I found one like it in the laundry, years ago, when Clara was alive." Her words hint at a connection to Victor's family, but her hesitation suggests more. Poirot presses gently. "And your time here, did you ever hear of a woman who left after Sir Reginald's death?" Sophie's face pales, and she mutters, "My mother worked here then. She left suddenly, but I was a child." Her voice cracks, and Poirot notes her accent slipping a hint of English beneath the French. Is Sophie more than a maid, perhaps an heir to the manor's secrets? To test the green silk's origin, Poirot visits Lady Evelyn in her private parlour, where she's arranging flowers, her hands trembling. "Madame," he says, showing the thread, "this matches your dress, but also fabric used by Madame Thorne. Did anyone else have access?" Lady Evelyn frowns. "Only the staff handles such things, but Victor's been in my wardrobe, borrowing scarves for his escapades." Her tone sours, and Poirot senses her disdain for her nephew's recklessness. He asks about the woman who left after Sir Reginald's death. Lady Evelyn stiffens. "A maid, Marie, dismissed for theft. She was French, like Sophie." The connection to Sophie's mother is too strong to ignore, and Poirot files it away, suspecting a revenge motive tied to the Egyptian scandal in the conservatory. Poirot examines the decoy statue, ensuring it looks convincing under the moonlight. He finds a fresh scuff mark near the fountain, not from the previous night, suggesting someone checked the pedestal recently. Nearby, a crushed fern bears a trace of green paint, linking back to Dr. Thorne's satchel. He confronts her in the library, where she's cataloguing plants, her spectacles fogged with tension. "Madame Thorne," he says, holding up the paint vial, "this was used to carve the serpent symbol, and now it appears again. Why?" Thorne's voice is sharp. "I told you, it's for labeling. Someone's framing me." But her satchel, left open, reveals a small knife with a green-stained handle, perfect for carving. Poirot doesn't accuse her yet, but her defensiveness is a crack in her armor. Colonel Hale is next, found in the smoking room, his cigar smoke curling like a serpent. Poirot shows him the handkerchief, noting the cigar scent. "Yours, perhaps." He asks. Hale snorts. "I don't use monogrammed nonsense. Victor's the flashy type." His limp is pronounced, but Poirot recalls its inconsistency, suspecting Hale was near the conservatory during Crow's murder. When asked about Marie, Hale shrugs. "Heard of her, caused a stir, then gone. Reginald never spoke of it. His dismissal feels too casual." and Poirot wonders if Hale's investments tie to the serpent's value. Victor, lounging in the billiard room, is Poirot's final stop. Monsieur Poirot says, eyeing his green silk tie, "Your handkerchief was found on the stairs, and your tie matches the thread. Care to explain?" Victor laughs. "Lost that hanky ages ago, and silk's common, Poirot." But his eyes dart to the door, and Poirot notices a smudge of green paint on his cuff, faint but damning. "You tried the safe," Poirot adds. "Why?" Victor claims, "Just curious. That statue's worth a fortune." His grin is too wide, and Poirot senses greed driving his lies. As night falls, Poirot stations himself in the study's alcove, the bell's thread taut across the safe. Hours pass, the manor silent, until a faint chime breaks the stillness. Poirot emerges to find Dr. Thorne, her hand on the safe, her face pale. I was checking it," she stammers, but Poirot's eyes narrow. "Madame, you carved the symbol we to frame the curse." Before she can answer, a scream echoes from the conservatory. Poirot races there, finding Sophie crumpled by the fountain, clutching a knife with the serpent symbol etched on its blade. The decoy statue is gone, and Victor stands nearby, his coat dark, his face flushed. "She attacked me," he claims, but Sophie gasps. "He took it. The serpent." Poirot's trap has sprung, but the scene is chaos. Dr. Thorne's presence at the safe, Sophie's injury, and Victor's proximity point to a conspiracy or a frame. The chloroform vial, silk, and handkerchief swirl in Poirot's mind, and Sophie's French accent, now gone, reveals her as Marie's daughter, perhaps seeking vengeance. In the next chapter, we'll see Poirot unravel the final threads, confronting the killer as the manor's secrets spill like blood. The serpent's bite is imminent. Stay with us for the end. Chapter 10. The truth unveiled. The moon hangs low over Blackwood Manor, its pale light streaming through the cracked panes of the crystal conservatory, where the air hums with the tension of a coiled spring. Hercule Poirot stands by the fountain, its water still as glass, his eyes fixed on the chaos before him. Sophie, crumpled on the floor, clutching a knife etched with the serpent symbol. Victor Harrington, his dark coat askew, claiming and Dr. Amelia Thorne, caught moments ago at the safe, her face a mask of panic. The chloroform vial, green silk thread, monogrammed handkerchief, and carved serpent symbol have led Poirot to this moment, where the threads of blackmail, poison, and a decades-old scandal converge. The storm has cleared, but the danger is at its peak, and the killer's mask is about to fall. In this final chapter, we'll follow Poirot as he unravels the last secrets, confronts the murderer, and brings justice to Blackwood Manor, his little grey cells triumphant in a denouement as sharp as a serpent's fang. Poirot begins by calming the scene, his voice steady despite the chaos. "Mies Amos, remain where you are," he commands, helping Sophie to her feet. Her hand trembles, the knife clattering to the floor, and her accent, once French now, carries a faint English lilt. "You are Marie's daughter, oui," Poirot asks softly, his eyes piercing. Sophie nods, tears welling. "My mother was wronged by Sir Reginald in Egypt. She died in shame after he dismissed her. I came to find the truth." Her words confirm Poirot's suspicion. Sophie's revenge motive ties to Crow's blackmail, but her injury suggests she's a victim, not the killer. He turns to Victor, whose green silk tie glints in the moonlight. "Monsieur, you took the decoy statue, claiming attack. Yet your tie matches the thread from Madame Hale's assault. Victor stammers, she came at me. I was protecting myself, but his paint-smudged cuff betrays him. Poirot calls the guests to the conservatory, assembling them around the fountain under the watchful eyes of exotic orchids. Lady Evelyn, pale and regal, clutches her shawl. Colonel Hale, his monocle glinting, grips his cane. Isabella, frail but alert, leans on her husband. Dr. Thorne stands rigid, her satchel clutched tightly. Poirot lays out the clues on a nearby table: the chloroform vial, the silk thread, the handkerchief, the knife, and his sketch of the serpent symbol. The murder of Elias Crowe, he begins, was no curse, but a calculated act to silence his blackmail. He knew Sir Reginald was poisoned, not by a heart attack, but by a bitter herb from Egypt, tied to the Emerald Serpent's ritual. The guests shift uneasily, and Poirot continues. Madame Hale was attacked to keep her silent, for she heard Crowe's secret. The killer used chloroform, a staged curse, and green silk to weave confusion. He picks up the chloroform vial. This, dropped last night, was brought from London, not the conservatory, ruling out Madame Thorne's plants. Thorne exhales, but Poirot's gaze shifts to her satchel. Yet the green paint, used to carve the serpent symbol, was yours, Madame. You marked the pedestal to frame the curse. Thorne's face crumples. I wanted to scare Evelyn into selling the serpent. Crowe was pressuring me to help him steal it, but I didn't kill him. Her confession cracks the case open. But Poirot knows she's not the murderer. Her panic is too raw. Turning to Colonel Hale, Poirot holds up the handkerchief. This, scented with cigar smoke, bears. A.V., you claimed it's not yours, yet your cufflink was found near Crowe's body. Hale snarls, I'm being framed. Poirot, I was on the terrace, but his limp, inconsistent throughout, betrays him. Poirot recalls the scuff marks near the conservatory, not the terrace, and Hale's possessive rage over Isabella. You knew Crowe's blackmail threatened your investments, Poirot says, and you silenced him. But the final piece clicks when Poirot faces Victor. Monsieur Harrington, your tie, your paint-smudged cuff, your attempt at the safe-all point. To you killed Crowe, using chloroform you brought, staging the curse with Thorne's paint, which you stole. You attacked Madame Hale to keep her quiet, leaving your silk thread. Victor laughs, but it's hollow. You've got nothing, Poirot. Poirot steps closer, his voice like steel. The handkerchief, mon ami, was Clara's, your aunt's, kept as a memento. You dropped it fleeing the stairs after attacking Madame Hale. You knew Crowe's blackmail about Sir Reginald's poisoning because you supplied the herb, years ago, to save your inheritance from his debts. Victor's grin fades, his hands shaking. You can't prove it. He spits, but Poirot holds up the knife Sophie dropped. This, etched with the serpent symbol, was in your room, hidden in a cigar box. Sophie found it, confronting you, and you struck her. Sophie nods, sobbing. He admitted it. Said he'd kill me too. The guests gasp, and Lady Evelyn cries out, Victor, how could you? Colonel Hale lunges, but Poirot raises a hand, stopping him. Poirot explains, Victor poisoned Sir Reginald to secure the estate, but Crowe knew, blackmailing him for years. When Crowe demanded the serpent, Victor killed him, using the curse. As a mask, he attacked Madame Hale, fearing she'd reveal his secret, and framed Dr. Thorne with her paint. Sophie, seeking justice for her mother. Marie, uncovered his guilt but became his next target. Victor bolts for the door, but Colonel Hale tackles him, his military strength unyielding. "You scum," Hale roars, pinning him until the police, finally arrived with the storm's end, take him away. As Victor is led out, Poirot turns to Lady Evelyn. "Madame, your husband's death was a tragedy, but the truth restores your honor." She nods, tears falling, and Sophie whispers, "Thank you, monsieur." Poirot adjusts his bow tie, his work complete. The conservatory, once a stage 4 murder, now feels cleansed, its glass catching the dawn's first rays. The case is closed, and Blackwood Manor breathes again, its secrets laid bare. What a journey through deception and danger. If you loved this tale, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell for more mysteries with Hercule Poirot. Comment below what clue surprised you most. Stay curious, Mies Amos, until the next puzzle unfolds.